So what happens when a computer program that's supposed to be unstoppable does something catastrophically wrong? Today, we're going to dive into the story of the DAO Hack, a wild digital heist that forced a revolutionary technology to question its own most basic principles.
And when I say catastrophic, I really mean it. Just look at this list. We're talking billions of dollars gone, poof, from hacks, collapses, and fraud, all in a pretty short time. The stakes in this world are absolutely massive, and it's right in the middle of this high-risk world that our story begins.
All right, so we're stepping into a world of digital heists. And the core idea here is simple, but also kind of terrifying. Once the code is on the blockchain, you can't change it. Mistakes aren't just mistakes, they're permanent.
You know, this isn't like your typical software where if there's a problem, you just push an update. Nope. Here, smart contracts are managing real people's savings in an environment crawling with hackers actively trying to break them. A single tiny flaw isn't just a bug, it's a potential bank robbery with no undo button.
So, right in the middle of this high-stakes world, this incredible experiment was launched. It was called the DAO, and it promised a brand new way to organize and invest. No bosses, no managers, just pure code.
So, what exactly is a DAO? Well, think of it like a company that literally runs itself. Instead of a CEO or a board of directors making decisions, all the rules, how money gets spent, which projects get funded, the whole shebang, it's all just written into code that everyone can see and nobody can secretly change.
Now, this specific project, the DAO, and yeah, it's a little confusing they named it after the concept itself, it was a huge deal. It was set up to be a decentralized VC fund, and it pulled in a staggering $150 million. Now, to put that into perspective, that was 14% of all the Ethereum that existed back in 2016. Insane. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. The DAO had this core radical belief: code is law. Their official disclaimer was totally clear about it. It basically said that any human language explanation is just for show. The only thing that actually matters, the only binding agreement, is the code itself. Whatever the code does is, by definition, the rule. Period.
So, with that absolute principle in place, that code is the ultimate law, what happens when someone finds a loophole? Let's break down how this incredible heist actually went down.
The attacker found something called a re-entrancy bug. And honestly, this image of a revolving door is the perfect way to think about it. The attack basically tricks the system. It lets you go through the door, grab some cash, but then spins you right back around to grab more before the system has even noticed you've taken the first batch.
And here it is, the smoking gun. You can literally see the exact mistake in the code. As you can see, the contract sends the user their Ether first, and then it updates their balance to 0. That tiny little window between those two steps, well, that was the whole vulnerability. So it all comes down to this brilliant and devastating loop. The attacker's code asks for withdraw. The DAO sends the money. But, and this is the genius part, before the DAO's code can update the ledger to say, hey, this person's balance is now 0, the attacker's code cleverly calls the withdraw function again. And since the balance still looks full, the DAO sends the money again and again and again, draining funds with every single loop.
This all kicked off on June 17, 2016. An attacker starts pulling funds into what people called a dark DAO and ends up siphoning off over $50 million. Then, in a wild twist, a group of white hat hackers, the good guys, used the exact same exploit to rescue the remaining $100 million. But here's the catch. The DAO's own rules locked up all of that money, both the stolen and the rescued funds, for 28 days. The clock was ticking.
This just threw the entire, very young Ethereum community into a total crisis. I mean, this wasn't just a technical problem anymore. It was a philosophical one. It was a crisis of code and, really, a crisis of conscience.
And you can see the two camps forming right here. On one side, you had people arguing, come on, this was clearly a bug, an exploit. The right thing to do is to step in, fix it, and give people their money back. But on the other side, you had the purists, and they were arguing, whoa, wait a minute. We all agreed code is law. The code was followed perfectly. If we change the outcome now, we betray the entire principle of what we're trying to build.
And then, just when you thought things couldn't get any crazier, the attacker themselves weighs in. They send a message basically saying, hey, I didn't steal anything, I just used a feature of the code as it was written. This is my Ether, fair and square. Any attempt to reverse this is the real theft. I mean, the sheer audacity of it.
So the community had reached a fork in the road, and the decision they were about to make would literally, and I mean literally, split the entire Ethereum blockchain in two.
So they put it to a vote. All the Ethereum stakeholders got to weigh in, and the result? It wasn't even close. A whopping 85% voted in favor of intervening to rewrite the rules and get the money back.
This intervention is what's known as a hard fork. Think of it as a massive software update for the whole network that basically turns back time. They added a special piece of code that just said, okay, all that money from the DAO, move it back to a recovery contract. They effectively hit a giant, system-wide undo button.
And you know, it's almost painful to see just how simple the fix would have been from the start. On the left, you've got the code that caused this whole mess. On the right, the corrected version. The only difference? It updates the user's balance to 0 before sending the money. One line of code, moved up. That's it. That's all it would have taken.
But the story doesn't end there. That 15% who voted against the fork, they refused to go along with the change. They said, nope, we're sticking with the original rules. And they kept running the original unaltered software. That original chain became Ethereum Classic. The new forked chain is the Ethereum that we know today. So the community was split, the principle of code as law was tested, and get this, the attacker still got to keep millions of dollars worth of crypto on the Ethereum Classic chain.
And if you want to know which path was more successful, well, the market has clearly picked a winner. Today's Ethereum, the chain that chose human intervention, is worth thousands of dollars. Ethereum Classic, the one that stuck to the pure code is law principle, is worth just a tiny fraction of that. It just shows you how monumental that decision really was.
Which brings us right back to the central question of this whole saga. The DAO was founded on this powerful, absolute idea that code is the ultimate authority. But when faced with a disaster, the community, the humans, chose to step in and override it. So it really makes you wonder, in this decentralized world, when push comes to shove, is code really law? Or is it just a set of rules that we can rewrite whenever the stakes get high enough?